Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was reborn with Fire Shadow, part 1. Subscribe if you enjoy the video, let's start the story. Unexpected revival. Okay, this obviously is not the afterlife. Because I sure as hell did not go swimming the last time I was there. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze commented as he finally got out of the ocean and tried to wipe the obvious salt water from his eyes with both his hands. Not that it was going well since his clothing was soaked. He was confused as to how he got here of all places, not that it was a bad place, since the island was pretty much a paradise at first glance. The former 7th Hokage of Konoha had long since passed on in peace, his son Boruto a high-ranking jonin who was now working with the 8th Hokage Konohamaru and married with his own family, and his daughter Himawari, herself a high-ranking jonin. And also happily married with her own children, and her now awakened by Akugin had been there at his funeral alongside his wife Hinata, who had also passed on. Thus he had accomplished all of his dreams and goals in life and had gone into the afterlife and had reconnected with those who had passed on like he did. That included his parents, Sasuke, Sakura, Hinata, Jiraiya, Haruka, Hiruzen, and so many others. It was a grand reunion and a chance to finally reconnect. Hell, he even ran into his mother figure Tsunade there and even Gaara, as well as the other former Kage. It was a wonderful time to see so many old faces even if they were long dead now. It was a good chance to relax after all that had happened, plus he could chat with Kurama and the others every now and then to hear how things were back in the realm of the living. So far their world did well, and much of what they had done to make their world better was retained and even improved on by their successors. Then suddenly at a certain amount of time, or what passes for time in the spirit world, some sort of massive disturbance slammed into the realm of the spirits and it caused quite the ruckus, and so he and everyone else did what they could to stop it however. While he had managed to help seal a rip, another blast of energy happened. He got hit by one powerful wave of the same energy, and in a brief moment he felt like he was being torn apart in multiple directions. And then he found himself in a bleeding ocean and had to get to the surface as he realized that he was in actual water and not some illusion. It managed to break the surface and take in a very explosive gulp of actual air and took in more oxygen into his body. Once he was done with that part he began to summon his chakra and soon got himself out of the water and began to water walk to look around and he soon spotted from a distance the island and despite his still lingering confusion on how could possibly be back in the world of the living. Once getting his foot on actual sand and then moving down to hold some of the sand in his hands to make sure that what he was feeling was indeed real, he began to look for any signs that could help give him some idea on where he was. Naruto then decided to try something, which he knew was going to be a pain, no matter how brief. He bit his finger to draw blood and sure enough, there was pain and soon he saw blood on his hand and, as quickly as that happened, his wound healed quickly. Okay, obviously I am alive otherwise I wouldn't be feeling pain again. And I actually bled, damn it, what the hell happened? Naruto said, as the pain he was feeling faded from being healed quickly. As soon as it faded and he was assured that he was indeed back in the lands of the living, yet how was eluding him still, another sensation assaulted him. I'm freaking hungry. It was true, having already died, Naruto was no longer affected by hunger, though he was able to enjoy the spiritual equivalent of food and drink, namely from Hinata and his mother Kushina, who was more than willing to spoil him rotten. No doubt to make up for all the years she had never been by his side. Hinata certainly did not mind and was actually happy to finally meet Naruto's mother even in the afterlife. And naturally Kushina took a shine to her daughter-in-law, revealing that she had been happy to see a woman who had loved her son so deeply, even when they were kids much to his embarrassment and Hinata's own. So to suddenly and unexpectedly be brought back to life was enough to drive those hunger pangs back with a vengeance, along with thirst, as well. Naruto decided to check himself first and was pleased at least that his now reborn chakra circulatory system was alright and recovering, though his chakra supplies were no longer as potent as before when he was alive. It made sense to him since his body, how he even had one much less his old body back, was no doubt recovering from all of this. So far his chakra was around the level when he had tangled with Zabuza and Haku, not a lot, and it would have to do for now. He decided to focus on getting food and water first and hopefully find out just where he was. He did not want to use any higher abilities and jutsu just yet, plus he might need to get some energy back before checking to see if Kurama and the other Biju were with him. On the off chance he still had his ability to connect to them. Sisters. Look. A number of women wearing simple clothes with armor on top and carrying a fair number of weapons turned to see the plume of smoke coming from a distance. And while they were drop-dead gorgeous women, they were hardly delicate as they carried their weapons well as if they were trained well in it. But the sudden presence of smoke where there should be none had them on edge, and one spoke out. What could be going on here? There's no one out there on that stretch of the beach at this time of the day. There can only be one thing. Intruders. The one turned and spoke. Go warn the others and tell Princess Diana and Queen Hippolyta that we have intruders. Yes, sister. The Amazons of Themyscira had no love for unwanted guests in their homes, even more so if they happened to be men. How this intruder found their sacred home they had no idea, but they were going to make sure that said individual would not leave it at all if it came to that. Back on the beach. Naruto was pleased to at least have found some food and had clean water right now. As soon as he got his stomach to calm down, he could try and find out if anyone lived on this island. He normally could have reached out with his Sage Mode or with the power of Kurama, as well as the others, but he had decided not to use them since with the way his body was, and his chakra as well, he was not sure that using either method right now was worth the risk. Not only that, he was not yet sure if they were with him since he had yet to try and contact them in his mind like he normally did when he was in a meeting with them. He managed to catch some fish and also found good freshwater from coconuts and got his thirst dealt with once he used his wind chakra to create a finely sharpened blade to cut them open to get to said water. He also decided to try some of the coconuts, and while he was not really a fan of the stuff, it was nice to have something to ease the hunger in his body a bit before going over to the main course. The fish took a bit more effort to catch and prepare, but with them now roasting over the fire, he had managed to make quickly with some good driftwood that was dry and some fire chakra and was now looking forward to a meal as the fish was cooking well. However, his danger senses quickly kicked in and he turned to catch an arrow before it buried itself into his back. He turned and saw several women who were armed and armored unlike what he had seen before coming at him. That was not entirely accurate as they seemed to be armed and armored in the same manner as Temujin's people, but the gear was still unknown to him. Naruto quickly got up and snapped the arrow in half and spoke out. Who are you people? One woman armed with a spear snorted and spoke. You dare ask who we are? Male, we are the Amazons of Themyscira and you are trespassing on our land. That comment quickly answered Naruto's previous question on whether the island was inhabited or not, though he still was confused on why he was able to understand the woman, as if they were speaking his world's language. It made no sense to him since, as far as he knew, after he retired as Hokage and traveled as a sage and ambassador, there was no way he had encountered people like them before. So far the only group he could think of who were similar to them right now were the Kunoichi of Nadeshiko, but he seriously doubted they related to Shizuka's village, where since there was no way that the Kunoichi there would set up a new village outside of the Land of Water. Not only that, he had never heard of Themyscira before, it sounded very foreign to him, so the only thing that could make sense to him was that he had somehow landed on a foreign island. And obviously they were not happy about it. What? Amazons? I have no idea who you are, and I certainly did not know this island was inhabited. Liar. You came here to plunder our home and no doubt take our sisters as your slaves. Okay, now that was uncalled for. The anger in the tone of the woman was genuine, and the stance told Naruto that the woman in front of her was really on edge in dealing with him. And no doubt would skewer him on sight the very second he did something that she thought was a threat. The same thing was present in the eyes of the other women, not a good thing in the blonde's view, and also even more confusing on why they have such an axe to grind against men. Granted, he understood that there were indeed men who got the ire of women easily, but to suddenly lump him, a man they barely met, into the same group as said men without any proof was very much a dangerous thing. But still, he would try to talk some sense into them and hopefully avoid an unneeded fight. Now hold it. I am not your enemy here. But that did not sit well with the women as the first speaker glared. Silence. Die. Well, looks like diplomacy is out the window, time to defend myself and hopefully get some proper answers. Naruto quickly decided that he had to move fast, even though he still had no idea what was going on. There was no way in the afterlife he was going to let himself die today. He quickly moved to using the body flicker jutsu and quickly took down the attacking Amazons, but non-lethally, since he was still confused out of his mind on who they were, and he was not going to get any good answers if they all decided to kill him. Soon they all dropped down out cold but alive, and he faced the one with the bow, quickly grabbing the weapon and snapping the string and tossing it aside. The Amazon was shocked to be sure, but Naruto quickly backed away and spoke again. Look, none of your sisters are harmed, I merely knocked them out, so can we please try and talk like civilized people? Anything the woman was about to say was cut short when another voice joined them. Who are you and why are you here in my people's home? Naruto turned and saw a drop-dead gorgeous raven-haired and blue-eyed woman who would have easily been up there in the looks department with his wife Hinata, Tsunade, even if she was technically older, Mei Terumi, Kurenai. And a few other Kunoichi he knew of plus some of the princesses back home. Even though she wore a style of clothing that did not in any way ring any memory chords, he had no problem seeing how drop-dead beautiful her figure was. She was tall, and yet had all the right curves, and swells in all the right places, and had muscles too, but not the overtly bulging kind, but the kind that belonged to a woman who was well-toned and strong, yet undeniably feminine. Still he could tell that she was no slouch in a fight, and no doubt well skilled in combat, that much he could see, as while she seemed to be casually studying him at first glance, she was already sizing him up, wary of any movement he might make that could be seen as a danger to her. And no doubt to her fellow women. She was also carrying herself in a very regal manner, only that of someone who had been raised in a very rich and powerful household, and from the tone was someone high up in the leadership ladder. Possibly a princess. Princess Diana. Yep, nailed it. Naruto was at least pleased to be speaking to someone who was of authority here, though he balanced it with the fact that she too was wary of him. But he could see that there was also a hint of curiosity in her eyes, as well, and that was something he might work with in order to decide just what he was going to do next. But for now he had to play the diplomat and hope that she was a more approachable person than the others. Okay, in answer to your question Diana Haim, I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze of Konoha in the Land of Fire, former 7th Hokage and head of the Uzumaki clan. And I apologize for being here, as I had no idea this was your people's home, and I have no desire to fight you or anyone else. Diana arched an eyebrow at that, curious at this sudden turn of events. There was always the chance that the male was lying, as her mother told her to be wary, as men can be very deceitful. The princess had arrived to witness him disable her sisters with a move that made her seem to be on par with Hermes, messenger of the gods, though not at that full level, and then attack the last Amazon, but had actually taken her bow and snapped the string, rendering it useless. But had then moved away to try and talk to her. Diana also saw that her fellow Amazons were actually alive and out cold. Still he could very well be doing it to make them lower their guard, pry a lie into their ear, and stab them in the back. For some reason looking at the blonde male though made her think that while he could be quite capable of such an act, it seemed counter to who he was. She had no idea why that was the case though, and her caution won over her thoughts for now, and she spoke once more to him. How so? You defeated my sisters with ease apparently, so why not attack me? And what does Haim mean? Okay, this is going a bit better, at least she's not trying to flatten my head in. I might as well try and see if I can at least end this without bloodshed. Naruto thought to himself and hoped that this was going to be in the direction he hoped it would go. Well, for one I did not harm them with lethal intent, merely rendered out cold, they will wake up in a few minutes. And for another I have no prior history with your people, though you do remind me of a people I knew of a long time ago. I also don't have any desire to fight unknown people as well. And lastly, Haim is a translation for princess, fitting now that I think about it, since you are one your highness. Diana cocked her head to the side, seeing that there was no deception at all in his words, making her all curious though no less wary. It was clear to her that this was unlike anything she had dealt with, and sure enough her fellow Amazons were beginning to wake up. Though they were doing it slowly, since how this man Naruto had hit them seemed to be very precise and accurate to have made them go down that quickly and take this long to recover. Now however it begged the question how the male got here. There was no sign of a ship anywhere, either an intact one or a wreck. There was no way this man had been able to swim all the way here, since the ocean had its fair share of predators, and thus moving in the ocean solely on muscle power was hard to do. How did you come here then? Naruto realized that this was one question he was going to have a hard time answering. After all, how exactly did one explain to another that he had pretty much been a spirit in the afterlife? But seeing as he had no other alternative before him, he might as well try and see how things will turn out if he told Diana his origins. Well, that might be hard to swallow. You see, I have no idea how I got here, or how exactly I am even alive for that matter. The last place I was in the afterlife. Diana was wide-eyed at that, as she was well aware of what the afterlife was, but among her people, they called it the Elysium Fields, and, as far as she was aware, very few ever came back from that place. Psyche was one, along with the famed musician who charmed Cerberus to sleep with his lyre. But no spirit itself had ever left the place unless they were somehow summoned with sacrifices or were sent up by Hades or summoned by a sorcerer, and the man before them was obviously no spirit. Cerberus would never allow anyone among the dead to leave the land of the dead. There was also the fact that the man before him was no evil man, as far as she could sense. Once more she counters what she felt with the still lingering possibility that he was deceiving them in some manner, but decides to try some more to see if she could get the truth from him. If not, then he would have to be detained and then subjected to the lasso of truth held by them, and since it forced anyone in its grip to speak the truth, then it would help. You are saying you are from the Elysium Fields. Naruto was surprised at that, and for good reason, as the afterlife was usually called the pure world, not the Elysium fields. But if she called it that, then there was the chance that the term she used was her culture's way of calling the afterlife. But that in mind, he might as well roll with it and hope for the best and reply. If that is what your people are in the afterlife, and I suppose yes I am, but somehow I was brought back to life and came here. Believe me, I am as confused as you are. So please, can we at least have a civil discussion before anything else? Any attempt at the conversation was cut short when another group of Amazons came in armed to the teeth, and one of them, a woman who would have been easily seen as a member of Kumo, came at Naruto with a spear. And she was not alone, as a Redeed who carried a sword and a shield was also glaring at him with killer intent. Naruto could not help but feel a bit of a sweat drop go down the side of his head. This was not good at all. Vile male, you dare to set foot on Themyscira, die. Naruto was getting really annoyed by this and decided to do something drastic but yet non-lethal, as he still needed to prove that he was not here as a threat to them. Prude, not again. That's it. Naruto decided to summon the chakra he had in him, which was still quite a lot, and soon placed his hands in a cross style that confused the Amazons, and Diana in particular, and then uttered the words of the technique that made him famous in many a battlefield. Page Bunshin no Jutsu. To the shocked Amazons, including Diana, there were now more men there, and all of them looked like the lone male, and all of them were growling in annoyance at them, and they were soon whispering. Magic. How come they all look like that male? He is a sorcerer. Naruto and his Kage Bunshin were ready for battle now, but the original decided to not attack the people before him and try to reason with them once more. He was not here for a fight with people he had no knowledge of, let alone had no reason to be enemies with. But if they were unwilling to listen to reason, then he would fight, possibly to restrain them, and if needed use one as a hostage. That he disliked immensely, but it was an option, just one he hoped he would ever use. Look, this does not have to turn into a battle. I am not here to harm anyone, and your sisters are fine. If I am at least allowed to leave in peace, then please let that be the case, and we can forget this ever happened. But if any of you decide to attack me again, then the kid gloves are coming off. Diana was intrigued indeed. The man was unlike anything she had been told about men. He seemed to have great power, and yet did all he could not to cause conflict, that much was clear. And apparently while he did look at her and her fellow Amazons like any normal male would, he seemed not to be driven by baser instincts. His stance was also that of a fighter, and yet unknown to her, which was confusing, as she had been trained by the best in her home and thus was familiar with many a combat stance, with only her mother and Artemis knowing more than she did. She also recalled the time he said he was actually from the afterlife and had no idea why he was alive, let alone here. There was indeed no deception here, and her empathic senses told her that the young man, or whatever he truly was, indeed had no desire to fight them, but would fight if pushed too far. She decided to speak and use the laws of her people when it concerned outsiders, namely those of the male gender. Normally male outsiders were either killed if they attacked, or if taken alive were then taken as a prisoner, and then after a set amount of time would be judged by the Amazon assembly and then executed for trespassing on their lands. Even more so if they attacked or abused any Amazon on the island. But a male can actually fight for the right to be allowed to remain on Themyscira under watch, but will not be harmed by any Amazon under the law until he either breaks the law in which he will be killed or desires to return home. And is affected by a spell to lose all memory of Themyscira. It was extraordinarily rare for a man to be made an ally of the Amazons and allowed to come and go among them. It was almost unheard of ever since the time Hercules and his thug followers came. After what happened, not one male ever was seen as an ally, with a marked exception of male gods who were friends to them. And they were few enough as it was, still they might as well give this man a chance. General Philippus, let me speak. Your Highness. Diana understood the dark-skinned woman's reasons for not being all that keen on what was going on before them, but she was not going to relent as she had made her decision and must see it through. Trust me. The Amazon general looked at her princess and saw that Diana was serious, and despite her personal thoughts nodded, and soon the princess spoke once more to Naruto. And since he knew that she was looking at him now, he was the one she was speaking to. You showed that you do not desire conflict at all with Naruto, and there seems to be no lie in your words, which in itself is surprising. But, as the law states, no man is to be allowed to set foot on Themyscira, and thus any are to be dealt with violence if it comes to it. And if an Amazon ever brings a melee Themyscira, then she is exiled. However. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that and decided to disperse his Kage Bunshin and listen to this. However. If you defeat one of us in combat, then you will be permitted to stay on the island without incident unless you desire to leave, and a spell made by our priestesses will remove your memories of our home. Or you break our laws, and thus that protection is taken away. Philippus then spoke. But if you lose, then you will be a prisoner until the time comes for you to be executed for trespassing. The blonde was wide-eyed at this. This was reminding him a bit too much of the time he tangled with Shizuka about the idea of her having to fight him to see if he was worthy of being her husband. If he won, then he would be her husband. If he lost, well, he was dead. This, on the other hand, while similar, was a hell of a lot more different than what he had to deal with when he faced Shizuka. You have got to be kidding me. Man, and I thought the old law in Shizuka's village was rather oddball. Naruto sighed at that and replied. There's no other way around this then. Diana shook her head, and that made the blonde growl in annoyance, as he wished there was some other way. Great, either I fight to save my life and stay here even if I did not come here to fight, or not fight and be on the chopping block. When I find the cause of how I got here, I will ask the kami to fix the mess. Or if I possibly find the idiot who messed up the afterlife and sent me here, I am shoving a Rasengan right into the colon. Damn it. Naruto's deep look of frustration was strange to the Amazon princess, since it seemed to her that he was utterly unhappy with being placed in this situation. But it also seemed that he was considering his response to the matter, and thus Diana waited until he replied. Very well, may I at least choose my opponent? You may. Naruto was sure this was going to be taken badly if he acted all arrogant about it and decided to be serious when he made his decision. The opponent had to be someone who can be seen as being high up the ladder for better impact. Not something one did unless they had cast iron balls or were insane. Thankfully, Naruto was no stranger to high-risk strategies, having done plenty of such things in his day when he was alive. Well, I wish to fight you, Diana Haim. That made Diana raise her eyebrow in surprise, but then smiled and she nodded, while the other Amazons were unhappy with the idea of him publicly challenging their princess and commented that he was a very arrogant male to think he could beat their princess. She saw it differently. The man had picked her because she was someone who was high up in their people's leadership ladder, since she was admittedly the princess of the island. Thus fighting her was not an arrogant move, but a calculated one, as he had picked one of the strongest fighters among them. And also one of the highest among their leadership. Not only that, she had seen him when he chose her as his foe. He had taken a lot of consideration on this and was not rushing in out of arrogance. Interesting. This should be an interesting match, one I have no desire to lose. He may be interesting, but he is still a male that I will have to defeat. Very well, I accept your challenge. And if you do defeat me, then you will tell us all your story. Later. The two faced one another in a ring in the city after he allowed himself to be taken prisoner and escorted by the Amazons, while Diana decided to move forward and prepare things with her mother. The queen was soon seen, and Naruto had to admit that she too was drop-dead gorgeous, since she had blonde hair, blue eyes like her daughter, and a face and figure to die for. The way she moved and spoke was also of a regal manner, along with the items one expected one of royalty to wear. But like her daughter, the queen was a seasoned fighter, that much he had no problem seeing, and the way she would calmly and confidently hold the handle of her sword was just as telling. Her stare towards him was also the same, but she was also rather curious on who he was and no doubt had been told of his story by her daughter and was no doubt trying to see if he was lying to them. The golden lasso nearby might have looked like ordinary rope, but Naruto was no fool and doubted that it was there for show. He knew he had only drank water and had limited food, and so he might not have a lot of energy, and since his return to the realm of the living, he was now fighting the effects of sleepiness and hunger since he was still adjusting to being alive. Thus he listened to the queen speak on the situation to all the Amazons and also the fight that was to begin between her daughter and Naruto and blessed this match under the name of their patron goddesses to decide how this battle shall end. And so it would begin. While the Amazons cheered Diana, none cheered for Naruto, and they merely glared at him and said some dispiriting names, reminding the blonde of his past prior to becoming the hero and legend he was prior to his peaceful passing. It did not bother him in the slightest, and soon he turned to face the queen, who soon gave the command. Begin. Naruto quickly moved on the defensive as Diana came at him and they clashed with one another. Diana had exceptional strength to be sure, but not at the same level as Tsunade or Sakura, and he was much stronger than he was when he was younger. And no doubt being shocked by Sakura in their younger days when she was Tsunade's apprentice and him dodging some of Tsunade's own blows toughened him up somewhat. He proved more than able to hold his own, which surprised Diana and her sisters, and his fighting skills were impressive even though they still saw him as a disgusting male. One of her punches was blocked by Naruto with his left forearm, but he moved a fist upwards and then moved close to launch an elbow strike to Diana's midsection. The attack was done at a good pace, and Diana managed to avoid the blow by moving backwards, but Naruto quickly moved forward and actually moved to using his hands to allow him to flip in midair and deliver a punishing axe kick with his left leg, forcing Diana to block with her forearms. Naruto on the other hand could see that Diana's style was very good, similar to an extent, as a fusion of the gentle fist and the strong fist, but having none of the potential of both. Her speed was excellent and her healing was good as well. But he was not going to relent at all, even if he had to admit that it had been a while since he had faced a good foe in battle. He used that same position he was in while mid-air to place his other foot on Diana's forearms to allow him to leap over her. She moved to try and land a kick to him as soon as he landed aiming for his side, only for him to drop to his knees, allowing the kick to sail over his head before lashing out with an uppercut, which she evaded though it was close. She unleashed a palm strike and it managed to hit Naruto, but instead of being angered by being hit, he took the blow and then moved to the side with a rising side kick that struck Diana on the side. Ah. Diana grunted at the blow, but she did not stop as she quickly got her footing back and defended herself from Naruto, who was using some of the moves he learned from Hinata when they would spar with one another to keep in shape. He did not have the Byakugan, but he certainly had the moves with it counted. However, so did Diana, as she was able to defend herself well and also unleash attacks right back at Naruto who either evaded them or blocked them. He managed to land a powerful blow when he evaded a series of punches from her and quickly evaded a kick to his side and leaped over her, and before she could retaliate, he unleashed a double punch and kick combination to send Diana back who recovered. And expected him to taunt her when she was on the ground on her knees. But he did not. Impressive, the stance and form you use in combat is very interesting indeed, Diana Heim. The only styles I know of that have similarities is the gentle fist and strong fist, both of which are powerful in their own right, coupled with your strength and endurance. The style is indeed very effective. You also showed exceptional skill in defense, as well as timing, along with combat awareness. You no doubt would make a powerful kunoichi if you lived in my world when I was still among the living. Diana and the others were surprised. Instead of taunting Diana and calling her inferior for not being able to stop him that time around, he praised her skills and fighting ability. Diana herself had been praised before, but never by a man, and it was interesting, as well as making her feel pleased with herself. I thank you for your praise, but this is not over yet. I have no doubt about that. The two clashed once more once Diana was on her feet and punches, kicks, and more were unleashed, and to Diana's amazement and actual joy, Naruto was able to match her blow for blow as she began to enjoy the fight. Naruto likewise was becoming more into the fight as it had been a while since he fought a decent foe and he admired her beauty like any man would if they were in his shoes. Soon she charged using her fist and he countered by flipping over her and landing as she lashed out with a kick which he blocked and then both punched one another hard in the stomach. Both of them recovered and continued to fight, and what would have been a quick fight in the eyes of the Amazons was now a fierce battle that lasted hours, but none of them complained as they had never seen a man go the distance with any of them, let alone Diana herself. Hippolyta herself looked on at how the two were fighting one another. She could see that the others were amazed as she was, but she also saw the joy Diana had in her eyes. And the way she moved showed to the queen that her daughter was actually liking the fact that the man was able to hold his own thus far. She turned to see that Anna herself was surprised that someone like Naruto was able to stand against her sister. She also saw that Artemis was focused on the fight while Alexa, the older Amazon sister, was looking on in surprise at how this fight was playing out. They wondered just what this male's story was since the idea of him coming from the Elysium fields was hard to fathom. But she decided to wait and see how this battle would end and then determine with the aid of the lasso and if needed the priestesses to determine the truth on the matter. Both combatants though were focused on another as they continued to land blow after blow, and it seemed that Diana had long since discarded any of her people's distrust towards men and focused on enjoying this battle. Naruto was somewhat in the same boat as she was, as there was now doubt that he was now adjusting to fighting against a living breathing opponent. And while a part of him admired her as a woman, he also admired her as a warrior, and while not a kunoichi like his wife and those he knew back when he was alive, she had exceptional potential. You fight well. Likewise, Diana Heim. Soon however, Naruto pulls a powerful combination that knocks Diana out and he is the winner and is bruised greatly, as Diana was. But he smiled at Diana and to her surprise, he somehow summoned a form of glowing fire into his hand and then placed it on her shoulder and her injuries fully healed. As soon as he did so, he stood up, helped her up, and spoke. Have I accomplished what is needed? Diana nodded. That you have, and you healed me as well, are you sure you are not a sorcerer? Nope. Just a really impressive shinobi. Now I think I need to sleep. Naruto soon closed his eyes and began to fall down, much to Diana's surprise, and she caught him and she saw that he was indeed exhausted and recalled that he had not eaten or rested ever since he came here. He was still alive, and she decided to take him to the healing house and looked at Hippolyta, and the blonde queen was more than able to understand her daughter's request, and she soon spoke. Let it be known that Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze has proven himself worthy to remain here in Themyscira and thus is under the protection of our laws. The others agreed, and Diana was even more interested in what he had to tell of himself as the man was taken on a stretcher and she accompanied him. Thanks for watching my video, goodbye.
Now hit him! Yes, got him! Time to get personal! Shoot him! I am trying! Not now! Not now! The laser is down! Wait! I have an idea! Can't wait much longer! Hold him! Then what? Get ready to jump! Wait, what?
That was fun. Hey, you have dinner plans? I know this great pizza place.
I must return to Simcaria.
Right. You have a war to fight.
I do not like to fight. Do what I have to in order to help my people.
I know. That's what heroes do.
I am no hero. But you have taught me a few things.
Oh yeah? Like what?
Like how to disarm my enemies with bad jokes.
Actually, they're good jokes, but I understand humor can be subjective.
Thank you, Spider-Man. For everything. I don't do hugs.
Yeah, right. Of course. Hey, can I get a lift back to the city? I'd swim, but it'd take forever to get the river smell out of my suit.